Hi, I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're excited to be here at CyberWeek talking to Chris Crummey, who leads the new IBM Center for Government Cybersecurity. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Wyatt, thank you for having me. This should be a good session.
Well, let's start by asking the question, when it comes to managing cybersecurity, most organizations usually concentrates on technology platforms and processes, but how are you and your advisory board at the IBM Center for Government Cybersecurity looking at how to deal with cyber incidents these days?
Well, I'm going to start with language, right? One of the differences is understanding that risk is the language between the business, the technical, and the executives. And we're very much focused on the human side of cyber. So focusing on culture, the processes, how the employees feel, and not just a technical response. So we want to look at it as a holistic business event and not just a technical or IT event that happens.
That makes a lot of sense. But maybe we could turn a little bit more towards of all the customers you work with. What are maybe the most important non-technical things that organizations are doing to combat cyber threats?
Well, I would start number one, the strongest and most mature customers we've ever worked with focus heavily on a security culture. And that starts at the top and goes all the way down to the teams that you probably don't even think about, right? We call it the Disney effect. The highest trained person at Disney is the garbage man because they get the most amount of questions. So understanding that culture starts at the top should be woven into the fabric of the company and not just, and I know October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, it shouldn't be just this month that you're focused on training and behavioral change. It should be every day that you do this, right? We saw one customer have t-shirts that says, "You are the shield." And so everyone felt responsible for protection of that company based on that particular culture. And I would say that in order to drive that, the most mature customers do their training at home. If I make you a better mom and dad at home, oh my goodness, does that awareness and behavior change come into work? So these are some of the tips and tricks we've seen with some of the most mature customers.
Very interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about, so what role do human biases play in responding to cyber incidents? And how can organizations best prepare for those biases on a customer's worst cyber day?
So on their worst cyber day, you have to remember this is now a brand new crisis. So with a brand new type of crisis, you have to have the right language, the right process, the right understanding. You have to train for that concepts. So understanding that when your worst day hits, cortisol, which is a stress hormone, has about an 18-minute half-life in the brain. And that 18 to 30 minutes is where the most amount of mistakes are made in responding to the cyber crisis. So training for that, understanding that. So building that into how you respond and how you train and into your run books. So if I were to summarize, I think the top two strongest biases, one would be confirmation bias. They get one piece of information and they cannot let it go. So one is to train to validate and verify first before you move on. Number two, an interesting concept that we train on, something called dual verification. If I'm about to move a lot of money or a lot of time or a lot of resources, I'm going to have one team prove the hypothesis and I'm going to have another team disprove the same hypothesis, then make the decision, because the bias can be so strong. The second bias is job versus non-job bias, meaning like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to react. I don't want to cause any issues, the non-job. And then the job bias is, it's my job to do something. I'm going to force myself into the situation because they haven't been trained as to what their role is and when their role should execute. So it's kind of an underreaction and an overreaction, and have those two concepts built into your run books.
Interesting. Well, and perhaps last then, what do you see the best organizations doing right when it comes to supporting frictionless security? That is, balancing the need to give users easy access to the resources they need, but also making sure that they're keeping the enterprise secure.
And it's a strong balance that you have to meet between increasing your policies and the technologies in order to keep you more secure, but at the same time, you have to keep in mind how easy is it for the employee to adopt, embrace, and become the shield, if you will, in order to do that. So one example is passwords and password managers, right? So companies are saying, listen, employee, here is a free password manager. Not only do I want you to use it at work, but I want you to use it at home also, going back to my other topic. And, you know, in order to break a 15-character password, which is a NIST standard right now, it takes 300,000 years to break it. So it's very secure. The downside is human beings are not designed to remember 15 characters. So make it easy for them to do the right thing. How do I easily share stuff? Like, if you go back and look at one of the top 3 issues in cloud security, it's shadow IT. It's the use of non-approved technologies and solutions because they're trying to get their job done. And instead, you need to focus on, how do I make sure that I make it easy for my employees to not only do the right thing, but be more secure? So removing shadow IT and being able to address that frictionless, make it really easy for your employees to do the right thing, really helps.
Well, Chris Crummey, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing some of your insights with us. And we also want to thank our audience for tuning in as well. So we hope you'll enjoy the rest of Cyber Week. And Chris, again, thank you for being with us.
I appreciate the time, Wyatt. Thank you.